Welcome into another edition of Hornet Nation Unfiltered, the last show of July. And what a way we go into the last show of July as we bring back three former, we'll call them players in the sports information department at Alabama State. But before we do that, we want to start out and dedicate this on a somber note to somebody very important to all four of us that we lost here in July, and that's Jay Holcey from WVAS 90.7 FM. Jay played a big part in this business for all of us, producing shows, producing events, producing anything we ask him to do, also getting on PA. We'll talk about Jay all throughout the show, and so everyone knows how deep this relationship goes. These were the three phone calls out of the four that I made to put the news out about Jay so they didn't catch anything on social media. So that tells you how far back this relationship goes. And let me introduce our esteemed guest today. And we'll start with maybe not the oldest by age, but the oldest as we go back into the annals of Alabama State, and that's Mr. Albert Moore. We'll call him AA, but we'll introduce him by his real name to start.
Hold on, buddy. I got felonies out there. Let's stick with AA.
Well, and then, we will go. I'll skip one and I'll go to Duane Lewis. Duane is now at Arkansas Pine Bluff. He's sitting at the beaches of Pine Bluff, Arkansas right now.
Yes. New developments here in Pine Bluff, yes.
And then we'll go all the way up to Tennessee. Why Tennessee? Yeah. I have no idea. But we will have a question for him before we go to anybody else, and that's the new athletic director at Lincoln Memorial University, Jasher Cox. Jasher, AA, Duane, welcome in. And before we start, the first question of the day is I've got to ask Jasher, is there an Arby's at Lincoln Memorial?
There's not in Harrogate, Tennessee, but I sit on the far east corner of the state. So I'm on the state line of Kentucky, Virginia, and Tennessee. There is an Arby's in Middlesboro, and it's less than a mile from me. So yes, kind of.
I had to make sure. Those of you that don't know, there's some ties, not only with Alabama State, but, Jasher kind of followed me at Tuskegee. AA was at Miles. So between the three of us, and Duane had just left Alabama State when Alabama State and Tuskegee started playing. There was a Twitter battle going between Tuskegee and Alabama State, and that Twitter battle was ended very quickly when we threw an Arby's sign up and said, "You wish you had one of these." And then AA decides to jump in the battle. And, folks, if you ever want to get into a Twitter war, one person you want on your side is AA Moore.
I will agree with that.
I will go ahead and tell you. But, guys, let's just delve into Alabama State. AA, you were there in the early 2000s. You were there during the SWAC championship run in football. Just talk about your time at State and just some of the things that you enjoyed about the run of that football program specifically.
So let me tell you, I was there pre-social media. I was there pre-website. To be honest, when I was there, we developed the first athletic website. It wasn't even Bama State Sports. It was I got with a guy who was working in the IT department, and I was just like, we don't have anything. So he builds it so that at least we could put press releases and things on there. And we had bigger ideas, but he left. So we kind of had a partial website, but it was something. And then, I actually was the one who made up that Bama State Sports name, believe it or not. So I go back that far, but back when I started, and actually before that, I worked at the Montgomery Advertiser. I would cover Alabama State. I'm an Alabama State alum. I've been around Alabama State since I think I got there in January of 1994. So I go way back, but I tell you, back in the early 2000s when they brought in L.C. Cole and started doing that when Rob Ivory was the coach of basketball, and we were winning there. I was the reporter covering Frida Freeman Jackson when she started at Alabama State as the women's basketball coach. I've been around a long time. I got a lot of my stories are old. like I said, since they're before social media and stuff, I don't think they would fit on there, even appropriate for there. But just I got some roots, and I enjoy the roots.
Before we go to before we let Jasher and Duane tell their stories, guys, let me tell you a story I know about AA pre-Alabama State days. Montgomery Advertiser. AA, what was it about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning? Probably we were sitting in the
you have not lived life until you are covering. What were they? 12, 13 years old?
No, they were 15, 16. They were 15, 16.
None of us had any business being out there at a baseball game over at Patterson Field at 12:31 in the morning for 14, 15-year-old kids playing baseball. But that's what happened. We were out there covering. I don't want to call it inconsequential, but I don't think anyone even half remembers the results of some of those games. But we were out there, me and Travis, making enough money to feed the family. But it was those were some tough nights, man. Me and Travis used to be out there, and this was before Patterson Field had been renovated. So there was like one air conditioner and one box air conditioner, and it may or may not work from time to time. And imagine being 1 in the morning, it had rained, it was still muggy, and they were playing Sweet Home Alabama at 12:15 in the morning when the 6th or 7th inning came around. It was amazing.
AA is leaving out one particular instance in that game. We had the windows open in the press box, and AA would scream when there was an error or they didn't make it out.
It kept going. It wouldn't stop. It just wouldn't stop. I didn't know what to do. And you got 14, 15, 16-year-old kids, however they were. Of course they're going to make mistakes. But man, when they're making mistakes at 11 at night, 12 in the morning, sometimes you got to let them know. And I think they could hear me. There weren't enough people there to keep them from hearing what I was saying. It was tough night.
And now we'll go to the what we'll deem him as the social media guru right now of the group. I think he makes more posts a day than I make in a week. And he served as in that department at Alabama State before he got to follow in somebody else's footsteps and clean up all those messes before he at one institution. And then we can't mention that name a whole lot, since it's an Alabama State podcast. I was at Lincoln Memorial. Jasher, just talk about your time at Alabama State and just the path you followed, and you've worked or had some dealings with everybody on this podcast today.
Yeah, so I walked in the door at Alabama State in November of 2009, and all of you guys, you're aware of what takes place in November. Back during that time, the Turkey Day Classic was active, and I walked in a week or so before the Turkey Day Classic. I was not in athletics, however. I was working in, I think the department was labeled marketing and communications, and I was an interim director of marketing communications for the university. Ultimately, my goal, they didn't know that then, was to get into athletics. And the right opportunity came, the perfect storm came. You probably remember the name Brian Morgan, who was there at the time. He transitioned out, so they needed someone in athletics, and it was perfect. So I quickly raised my hand, and that's how I got into athletics. And soon later thereafter, Darryl Horan made the transition from Auburn University Montgomery over to Alabama State, and we all coexisted together with the infamous LaTanya Thurston, who had been there for some time and was still around. And of course, she's still in that league and everybody's favorite. So yeah, we had some fun there, and I was there from 2009 until 2012. I had another gig within the institution, and I worked in HR. Duane probably remembers that role for a brief stint. Made the transition out of athletics to human resources. So if you ever have some HR questions, I can answer some of those as well. So before I made that transition fully from the university, in 2012, August, I then left and departed for the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And both of those times with Alabama State and with the SWAC, some of the best times of my life in athletics. Thoroughly enjoyed all of those days, guys.
So when you talk about just the transition now, you've gone from starting out just working at the university to working your way through athletics, to HR, to the SWAC, to the Horizon, to that school about 35 miles east of Alabama State, to now being an athletic director at Lincoln Memorial. Just talk about a little bit about that transition in AA. I'm gonna come back to you because I know you transitioned a little bit as well to, you have a side gig, what we'll call it, outside of athletics.
Yeah, so I after leaving the Southwestern Athletic Conference, I took an associate commissioner position in communications for the Horizon League in Indianapolis. So I was there for a brief stint before coming back, and I'll go ahead and name the name. I'll say it for you. It's the second winningest program in college football among Division II football schools. Right, AA? That's Tuskegee University.
Oh, no.
That's why I was trying not to mention the name, Duane, because I knew I worked there. I was trying not to get this started between those two and see John.
Listen,
Right.
so no drama. Trust me, I've enjoyed my stints at each one of my employers. You won't get me to say anything bad about any of them. And shout out to Willie Slater after I made the transition from the Horizon League. Gave me the opportunity to be his assistant athletics director. And, I'll be honest, I would not be in this spot here in Harrogate, Tennessee at Lincoln Memorial University and an AD had it not been for Willie Slater. So I can say that freely. And it's the God honest truth. He trusted me really without really knowing me from the man in the moon, to be quite honest. And so, I tried to do my best, and I hope I was able to do something beneficial for Tuskegee. So it was a great time, again, at all of my employers, including TU. Loved Alabama State as well.
Now we'll kick it over to the elder statesman of the group. I would safe to say a little bit. Sitting at the beach in Pine Bluff. If you told me there was beach property in Pine Bluff, I'd be a millionaire right now. But that's Duane Lewis, and Duane, you were at State. Jasher was there when you came in, and you were, I think me and you, we worked on a release announcing the Labor Day Classic, and I went to call you about 3.5-4 weeks later, and they said you had departed for another institution. I think our paths never crossed in that, but we've known each other in the business. Just talk a little bit about your time at State and just your journey just throughout.
It was a lot of fun, man, at Bama State. Got there kind of this golden era, if you will, of Hornet athletics. We just started turning the corner with literally winning championships. And for my time there, from March of 11 through July of 16, it was nearly 60 championships between conference, division. Just you run the gamut of it in pretty much every sport. And so it was a great challenge, but it was a lot of fun, man. Just a lot of great people, a lot of great experiences, kind of seeing the coming of age of the department, of the respect by conference teams around the league. Time of my life. It was a time that it was when I think Bama State needed me and I needed Bama State at that point in my career and in my life. And it was 5 really good years that have led to everything that I've done since, and be able to move on from there to assistant AD at Prairie View and now senior social AD at Arkansas Pine Bluff. So, but the foundation of that was really laid in Montgomery at Alabama State and working with Jasher. And he's a guy that, we still bounce ideas off of, as I do with you, Travis, and trying to just stay ahead of what's coming. But all of that foundation was laid in Montgomery and the Acadome. And I actually went to the Acadome as a student, as a senior at the Southern University. Acadome had just opened, I think, in 94. And I came there in spring 95 to cover basketball. So in this first year, Acadome experience goes back to then, and also a year and a half at the SWAC in the latter part of the 2000 decade. So had some familiarity with Bama State, and has been great for my experience and for my career.
Hey, I told you he was the elder statesman in the group.
And I'm the one sitting here with the gray beard.
Hey, zoom in now. There's some gray in there. There's some gray in there. I'm with you. Just not as profound as yours, AA, but there's some in there. Absolutely.
Look, all I know is if I'd have known that AA was going to go get his haircut, guys, I'd have gone and got mine shaved today too.
Hey, it's not too late, man. It'll take you 5 minutes.
I didn't
Slow
think
it down till you come back from the bathroom.
I was really trying to fill in, blend in with the two gentlemen, Duane and with Jasher, because I was like, hey, if they're going to come in here bald, I don't want them to feel like, this hair growing thing is exclusive. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna cut it off, man, and we'll be okay with that. But man, yeah, Travis, you could cut yours off too.
Well, I can't help it. You better be glad I didn't go shave mine, because I'd have probably had to turn the camera off if I did. It wouldn't have been.
No, leave it on. The jokes probably would have told themselves.
But it grows back quickly.
Hey,
it does.
All I know is all three of you have made the trek back since you left Alabama State. You've come back for some sports. You came back with Miles. I would presume you made the trip. I wasn't there. You came back with Miles for the Turkey Day. Jasher, you came back for Labor Day. And then Duane, you've been back several times with other institutions. Is it weird when you walk in as a visitor into those facilities? Does it feel any different than it did when you were there as an employee?
I'll be glad to answer that question. And you know what, my time goes back. I know we're talking about age. Again, I'm old enough to remember playing AAU basketball where you guys dined for the cafeteria. There used to be the old gymnasium, called the sweat box. And there's also a coach on your staff. Don't let him fool you. He's no spring chicken. He played in there as well. His name is Jarome. He's one of your assistant basketball coaches and one heck of a player. And he was also my high school teammate. We'll get to that. I'll talk about him later on if we have time.
Yeah, because there is something I got to ask you, how something really did happen now that we've got everybody.
Yeah, I'll give you more about that. But again, walking on that campus in the mid '90s, and again, I remember when it was called the Joel Reed Acadome when it was initially built. So I do remember those days. But again, to answer your question, Travis, whether it's coming back for an event with another institution, whether it's seeing a family member play in the AHSAA regional basketball tournament, walking in that east lower lot level, seeing the same people that's been working there and employed, it never feels like you're a stranger. It always feels like you're literally walking into the front door of your own living room. So that's what I always remember about that place, and that's what I adore about it.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this. For me, it is different. It was different. After me and the university parted ways, this was back in June or July of 2006. Shortly thereafter, I moved from Montgomery, and while I would come back sometimes, most of the time it wasn't to come on campus. So, when I came back for that Turkey Day game between Miles and Alabama State, it was the first ASU sporting event that I think I had been to, minus one women's basketball game in Shreveport when they had the basketball tournament there. I hadn't been to any Alabama State athletic events, and everything had changed so much. Obviously, when I worked there, we were still playing football games down at Crampton Bowl. When I went to school, I played in that gym that is now the Shuttleworth Dining Hall, the Sweat Box. I used to play in the murals in there at least. And where the football stadium is, some of my friends actually rented apartment houses there. So between classes, instead of going all the way to the other side of town, which is where I stayed, all of us would go right up the street there, and that's where we would hang out in between classes. So the campus looks different. It functions different. It feels different, but that doesn't make it bad. It's just different. It's you evolve, and you would hope that it would have a different feel. It can feel the same in your heart, I would imagine, but the overall look and feel of the campus it's markedly different than when I was there.
Duane, I'll go to you. You've been there for multiple sports, and I can remember a basketball game not too long ago. You showed up. I was running a little bit late. You had already set up. You stuffed down on the end. You knew exactly where to go, what to do, how to do it. Just for you, I mean, you were not really an outsider to begin with, but you came in from other institutions and then worked at State. Now you're back again. Just the difference for you and coming in. I mean, the same people are there or were there as coaches.
It's a little bit of both. Was honored to be there when we opened new ASU Stadium, Thanksgiving Day against that school from the East. And, it's a unique experience being able to open the stadium and being a part of something that was really historic. It was a phenomenal week, and just seeing the growth of the campus. That was kind of the highlight, obviously. But during the tenure I was there between spring of 11 and I think spring of 13, the Houston Markham Complex opened. Wheeler Watkins Baseball Complex opened. Football Stadium, Barbara Williams Softball Complex. Just seeing the campus evolve with brand new facilities in that time, really seeing that transformation, was special to be a part of those things. Even coming back now is difficult to have on another shirt or root for the opposing team, because I did and do still feel like part of the ASU family. So it is, you know where to go, you know where the trap doors are, where the park and things of that nature. But it's still very, very different when it's game time to be on the other side of that and trying to tune out the band, but even to this day, out of respect, when the alma mater is played, I stand. Even though I've been at Prairie View and now UAPB, I stand with my fist up in respect for Alabama State. I do the same when I've gone back to games at Prairie View, because it does become, for me, it's been very much like a family atmosphere.
Yeah, I kind of, Duane, on your part, I kind of feel the same way. When I got to State, I got thrown football and said, hey, you're going to be on the air for football. Well, our first two games were against Tuskegee and against Troy. The two I worked out prior to. Yeah. So you hear ball and parlay on the other side, and you try not to get excited, and you remember who you're working for, and then you get down to Detroit and hear the fight song, and we tie the game up down there, and then they go ahead, and you have to remember every call you're making on air.
Yes.
You have to tone it down, because it's not exciting for Alabama State fans when Troy scored or when Tuskegee scored.
Right.
The hardest thing for me, I think, my first game inside that stadium was walking down on the field and speaking to the coaches that were from Tuskegee. But at the end of the day, we joke about it being that school from the East. There's still good relationships there. There's good relationships with coaches from here that have moved on everywhere you go. And that's part of our job, is to make sure we keep those relationships going, because at the end of the day, those are the guys that gave us opportunities to cover their programs. Here's a question for you. I know where I stand in this rivalry. I've got a winning record so far, and it's going to stay that way since we're not playing in about a month and a half. Just the Alabama State Tuskegee rivalry, and I'm gonna put Jasher on the spot a little bit, because he's been on that side of it the same way I have on both sides. He got off on the right foot when he was at Tuskegee and won the first year. And then we just kind of we stole it from them the last two in the final few seconds. But hey, I'll take both of them any day of the week.
Yeah.
So Jasher, just that rivalry for you, for me, it was hard, because I've been, I was on both sides, and it was still fresh for me, because I had kids and coaches on both sides that I still knew from Tuskegee.
Let me jump in before Jasher jumps in. Jasher, I think, stirred the pot, because I'll never forget, the cheerleaders with the banner had the record of the rivalry. In the first game, before they came out the tunnel, they had the record of the rivalry on the paper before the team ran out. Stirring the pot before we even get to kickoff.
Wait. Let's go back to stirring the pot before kickoff. Jasher stirred the pot a month before that, when he was saying who's ready for football and tried to go in. And he picked a fight with two people on staff at Alabama State, one who knew the rivalry, one who didn't. Yeah, now we're going back to that Arby's talk. So if I had an Arby's cup, this segment of the program would be sponsored by Arby's.
Yes.
Well, our social media person at the time also tweeted when we first arrived to the stadium, we're home. And we took a picture of inside of the stadium. This was prior to kickoff. So that's how good we felt about the game, by the way. But again, listen, that was a really good football team. And to be quite honest, AA may agree, may not agree. I think the next 2 years, or the next 3 or 4 years, Tuskegee should have been in the hunt to continue to win beyond that. But again, football guys, they always get it right. So that's that. I have a newfound respect for the SIEC, by the way. And coming out of the SWAC, I didn't know a whole lot about that league and its culture. But Tuskegee University is able to get so much out of so little, similar to what AA Moore is dealing with at Miles College. athletes are the same. They put on their uniforms the same way. And man, I quickly learned that when I saw how challenging it was for Division I school, multiple Division I schools to play against a Division II HBCU. That same year, Tuskegee not only knocked off Alabama State, but they went on to beat Jackson State that same season. And it didn't make the playoffs because of, well, you know how that works in terms of playoff committee. You're not always a fan favorite on that level, but a very good program. So, my first time walking into the brand new stadium, I was actually with the SWAC. I didn't necessarily have a dog in the fight. You look foolish working for a league office and cheering, even if it is a non-conference opponent. But I still remember that crowd. I still remember the antics. Somehow you guys got Duane, Samuel L. Jackson to make a statement about this being our house. So the energy was full that day, man. And it was such a great memory for a guy that's a Macon County native, growing up in the same county as Tuskegee and attending the Turkey Day Classic at Crampton Bowl for several years. It was such a joy to be able to see that game, even though it was only one game that season. It was the last home game of the regular season for ASU. It was such a joy to see all of those people who played in a stadium that didn't belong to either party to finally play that thing on a campus that belonged to us. I say us, our culture, that institution, it belonged to us. It was our game for the first time. And it was such a joy to be able to witness that.
Well, I'll say this.
Before you go any further, let me just say, since Jasher did this about the social media, let me tell you, the one person in this group you do not want to get into a social media battle, I said at the beginning, is AA Moore. AA has gotten Jasher, and he has gotten me. Duane, I don't know if he's gotten you yet.
Not yet. I'm sure it's coming.
Hey, but AA got me, and he was sitting no less than 5 feet to my left.
Oh, same here. That's happened before.
In the press box.
Yeah.
We were winning at Tuskegee. We were winning. And AA said, that's okay. He said, we got plenty of time left. Mm-hmm. As soon as they scored the winning touchdown, I've never heard somebody scream and hit enter on a tweet as quick as AA did and run out of the press box, down the stairs, and onto the field.
I understand I didn't run anywhere. At my size, we don't do a lot of running unless it's to the dinner table.
Hey, I was trying to give you credit, AA. Nobody did that in here.
Let's keep it real. I may have sauntered. That might be a better word, but run, no. Run wasn't it. But, I'll tell you this. First thing, I'm glad I've never had to root for Tuskegee. The two schools, actually, I've worked for 3 schools, 3 HBCUs, where rooting for Tuskegee was never part of the plan. That's Alabama State, Stillman, and Miles. I'll always boot them. Although, I'll say this, Tuskegee has some outstanding people. I've made many friends. Sister-in-law actually has a degree from Tuskegee. I got a cousin with a degree from Tuskegee. My brother actually went to Tuskegee, although he finished somewhere else. Trust me, I on a personal level, Tuskegee is fine and wonderful, as much as I may joke about it. But if you go back, I remember those Turkey days over at Crampton Bowl and having to go up all of those stairs. And here's a funny story. I don't know if any, because when you get to the new stadium, you got an elevator and stuff. I worked at the Crampton Bowl with no elevator. So prior to the first game of the season, I'd go up on a Friday, and I would take the stairs. I'd go up those stairs, and man, I couldn't breathe halfway up those stairs, and I wasn't near the size I am now. I did all of that because on Saturday, as I watched people struggle to make the stairs, I would point my finger and laugh at them like, you can't do these stairs? What are you doing? You need to get in shape, knowing I just got in shape the day before. I didn't want anybody to see me not be able to breathe going up the stairs. That being said, I saw Crampton Bowl change. I was there when the crown was in the middle of the field. You couldn't see to the other side from one side. I was there for the infamous fight that I think happened in 1998 or so. But this was back when
it was 98, because I was standing at the 20-yard line on the field.
And I was down there too, and at this point, I was still a newspaper guy. And try not to get, caught with the flying helmets and things of that nature. But it was right around then, though, that the rivalry started to shift a little more, because the whole time I was in school, Alabama State owned that rivalry. And then it started to change. Rick Comachie first, and then Willie Slater came, and And it was just, it made it a lot more enjoyable to watch because you knew you were going to have a good game. The last game of the careers of late Boris Jackson, Celtic Williams, that overtime game, being there for that, Turkey Day was always great. It kept me from my family a bit, but having that part of it or being part of that was certainly wonderful. So then when I came back, I guess it was 2015, and it was the first time I had been in the new stadium. But I'm a tailgating. I had never, ever had an opportunity to tailgate an Alabama State football game. It was my first time, and I tell you, I enjoyed it as an alum. All my friends, my frat brothers, moved by, just in case anybody wanted to hear that. It was outstanding, and the culture that Alabama State has built around that program, around the stadium, is outstanding. And if you haven't experienced it, you certainly should come experience it. I got a chance to come back even next year. And another good thing, when I came to the press box, it was amazing. I hadn't worked there in 10 plus years, and still the people who were doing the stats, for the most part, same people. They were all the same people. I knew it was going to get done right. Why? Because I helped train some of them. Myself, Miss Thurston, the aforementioned Miss Latanya Thurston, just had a birthday, I think, a couple weeks ago. She's years old and apparently doing a great job over at Prairie View. But, those times really to see the change and to be able to enjoy the environment, certainly very special.
Duane, what about you? You've been at several of those Turkey Day Classics.
Special, man. Like Jasher mentioned, that first game, I mean, it was a perfect week in terms of just everything kind of falling in place. The weather was like mid-60s. I mean, it was a perfect day. Being able to open that stadium on national TV. Everything went well except the final score from a Bama State perspective. But that experience, the pride that I saw in people's faces, long-time alums, long-time supporters, to be able to walk in for the first time when that team took the field for the first time, the roar in that stadium was amazing. And that Hornet pride was real on that day, and that's what stands out for me. And I haven't been back to one since leaving in 2015. Obviously, been some changes with that, but nothing brings out pride like a rivalry. Now, I've been able to see Bama State Tuskegee. Now, you really talk about a school directionally between Bama State and that school up north, and on the northern side of the state. But then having the experience now, Prairie View, Texas Southern, and now on the Pine Bluff side of it, more so with Valley, being able to see these rivalries in different perspectives. That Bama State Tuskegee is special, maybe more so because they're not conference opponents. That probably adds a little something to it. And I think for years, and Josh could probably attest, it's been more than Tuskegee. There is that fire and brimstone speech in the locker room that we all face at our respective schools now when we're playing. Guys have something to prove. And it felt like, Tuskegee would always be ready. Slater knew just what to say to get them amped and going. And it's really become a really good rivalry over the years because of that back and forth. And certainly think, as you guys mentioned, the tide changing about 98 or so, that's really made it a really, really strong back and forth over the last 20 plus years.
I can say this, if there was one thing that I would like, it would be if it wasn't the Labor Day Classic, it would be the Turkey Day Classic. I don't know about Jasher, since he was there for those three. That's nerve-wracking when you're sitting up there, and it always went down to the final seconds. First year we came back, Labor Day, Tuskegee wins on an interception to go up 8. We win in overtime. And Josh, I don't even remember what happened the other year we won. I can't even. The one I remember is 2 years ago, Ezra Gray scoring in overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Just know that in both of the last two victories for Alabama State, Tuskegee had double-digit second-half leads for what it's worth. But it just goes to show you that, how good of a job Coach Ely has done, and those guys didn't quit, and they've earned both of those wins back-to-back. So that's how that works.
Hey, you talk about the stairs at Crampton Bowl. How about Magic City when every other year the school is the home team and basically has to take the game day operations from Montgomery to Birmingham? load it all up, get it in the press box, and bring it back. You know, for me, I've already had to do it twice, and I've only been in 3 Magic City Classics. And I've gone up on Wednesday, week of the entire time. I don't see my family again until sometime Sunday morning. And by then, I'm still sleeping.
Before we get into that, let me say this real quick. As you were talking about the facilities, Duane, on campus, it really served my soul right to say that, you know, I had opportunities to interact with Houston Markham. I had opportunities to interact with Barbara Williams. The first Alabama State employee that I ever met was Larry Watkins. I actually tried out, this is how far I go back. I tried out for the baseball team back in the old Hornet Stadium with the track coming through the field. That's where I tried out. That's how long ago, yeah.
Did he have the baseball field on wheels, AA? In the van?
I know I haven't seen that part, although I know they, you know, baseball used to play. We used to play over at Peter Crump Middle School.
Yep.
Man, it was the program has come a long way, but it is great that Alabama State has put the name of these people who have been so integral in growing this program. And the numbers didn't always say it. There weren't tons of championship banners that were hung from the work of these individuals. But make no mistake, they laid a great foundation, or built on a foundation to get the program where it is today. And I appreciate that the school was able to see that, you know, as far as the academic as well, Dunn and Oliver. And obviously, I knew Coach Oliver. He was there when I was still a student and it was finishing up. And it's just, it like I said, it makes me feel good to see that happened. Now, as far as Magic City, I truly have not, and I should feel bad about it, but I don't know that I do. I have not been to a Magic City Classic since the last one I worked in 2005. And that was the last year that the city of Birmingham did not put the perimeter up around the stadium. So I had to work, you know, again, like you said, it was a switch between us and A&M, but I think that year A&M didn't have an SID, or maybe they had a new one. And so, I was going back-to-back years and things like that. And so I remember maybe 90 minutes, almost 2 hours after the game is over, you know, you finally make sure everybody is taken care of in the press box. And so it's time to leave. You want to go party. It's 8, 9 o'clock at this point. I couldn't get out. Could not get out. Got in my car, tried to turn, and Graymont, forget it. It was easily, before I got out of the zone, it was after 10 o'clock. By then, who wants to do anything? Especially after you've worked all day, man, it was crazy. And so you two got the benefit of got the benefit of being able to slide in, slide out. It was real easy. I got caught up in all of that traffic back in the day. That part, between that and the press box shenanigans with people, I promise somebody came in there with a full chinchilla one day. And I tell them, you get on the speaker right away. This is not a place for you to cheer. If you come in here and cheer, you can get kicked out. And this was an A&M person. He came in, full length. Man, he looked like the character that Denzel Washington played in
Lucas.
Yes. And so he came in and A&M scores a touchdown, and he goes off. And I just turned around and looked at it all the side. I said, right there. And they pulled him out of the box. This was before halftime. He didn't get a chance to see the band. That made me feel good.
You're still making those announcements, by the way. Still making those announcements.
Yeah.
Sure. We still make them, and it doesn't matter. It's a suite now, so it doesn't make it. Jasher, while he's talking about the fans cheering, I know you've done something I've done, and that's work at the Celebration Bowl. You talk about people coming up there in chinchillas and everything else. Grambling fans, decked out, had tigers on the shoulders, draped over, box. Alcorn State people just cheering in the press box. A&T Central. It was, Jasher, I don't know about you, but I told Michelle that I had to go downstairs for a little while because I just couldn't handle the press box.
Well, I'm always on the field type of guy anyway. If I'm not working in the press box, I can't stay closed in up there and trying to figure out. No, I'm always a field guy anyway, so I never indulge. But when you talk about the Celebration Bowl, that was a big deal for the league. I want to say it launched, 2015 season, fall 2015 maybe. But a big deal for that league, and glad it's in place. It's unfortunate that we won't be able to see it this year, but I know ESPN Events will have some things in place moving forward to be able to keep that bowl game moving. Big deal for the SWAC and the MEAC, excuse me. Yeah.
So, guys, before we go to this last topic, AA brought it up before y'all got on here about, maybe a reunion show. He was going to let the hair go a little bit, so we may have to come back for a reunion show at some point and talk about just some different things, get some other folks on this call. We'll have to get Miss Thurston on this call just to have some fun. She did celebrate her birthday. And AA, if you really want to put her age out there, she put it on Facebook for everybody to see. So she's gotten a little braver now.
Hey, so here's a true story. Me and LaTanya are from the same hometown, city called Waukegan, Illinois. I knew LaTanya before I got to Alabama State. At least my mother knew her and knew her people and stuff like that. So imagine I get down to Alabama State, come work, and she's there. That was pretty cool. She's worked with all of us, if I'm correct.
That's correct.
You took her to Prairie View and brought her over there, and I was like, nothing wrong with getting around. It's good work if you can get it. But if there's somebody who probably doesn't get some of the kind of credits that they deserve for some of the ways that things happen around Alabama State, you certainly got to give it to LaTanya. LaTanya, from the day I walked in there, I didn't know what I was doing. I had been a reporter. I'd never done sports information. It was never on my mind to do. But she knew the operation around there, and she could get you in and out of places. She could get things done for you, move paperwork, whatever it took. And so I don't know that they're going to put any wings up for her and stuff, but man, maybe they need to put a placard over one of the seats at the press row or in the press box and stuff, and realize that she did an outstanding job and letting the sports information operation run the way it did. Not only that, she served as the bowling coach. She was the first bowling coach at Alabama State.
Yeah.
She was very instrumental. Broke that leg.
Well, before we go to our last topic, just a disclaimer for all the Alabama State fans out there: if you see a tweet directed at you or Alabama State from Miles Golden Bears, that is actually Mr. Moore. That is not Miles. Just FYI, I have felt the wrath of that. I know Jasher has felt the wrath of that. Hey, while I'm at it, I do have to apologize to Jasher. Jasher had me at Tuskegee. So I know the first few weeks for Jasher at Tuskegee, he was probably wondering why did I follow? Why am I here?
I'll say this. Jasher had one of the best tweets ever, though, and I had to take it. And trust me, I don't ever say I always say we. I try not to put my identity out there. It always says we. But Miles went to Tuskegee, and it was the year that you all probably should have went to the playoff, but didn't. But Miles was set to go to the playoff. In fact, I think Miles was ranked that week. We went to Tuskegee, and man, I was on the social media talking cash money. And the second scrimmage play of the game, our quarterback, he was a freshman, throws it right into the chest of the linebacker for Tuskegee. He takes it to the one. Next play in, they score, and Tuskegee puts a 50 piece on us. They ran the marathon on Miles. And shortly after the game, it may have been while the game was still finishing, Jasher, using the Tuskegee account, puts up a GIF of chicken nuggets. And it was an endless row of chicken nuggets and said, "How did you like that 50 piece?" And the nuggets never stopped. And that was the end of me tweeting for that day. There was nothing I could say to come back to that. And later, I think the next year, as we were getting ready for our next battle, he simply repeated the old tweet, and there was nothing I could say. That, for all the things that I put out there, that was the best tweet that I saw come in the entire back and forth between.
But what's really fun about all of that, guys, is you got fans interacting with said tweets that we're talking about, not really knowing that all of us are friends, and we're laughing at each other behind the tweets, trying to figure out how is he reacting? How is he reacting? Not really knowing that we know each other anyway. That's the most funniest thing, because you see the two fan bases, they really get at each other's throats. And, we're sitting on our sofas laughing at each other and exchanging text messages at the same time.
Jasher will text me. He's like, man, I'm done.
Yeah.
Hey, I still have, I know the password to that account if you want it. Hey, but it goes back to the text messages we were sending last night about today. We're sitting there talking about, different things about getting on, and, I had to get Jasher again. I think that's the third time I found a picture that, you think it's Coach Woodson in the NBA, but I've gotten you 3 good times. You got to admit, those 3 were pretty good.
Yeah, that looked like him. I had to look at it twice. I did.
Hey, with the bald head and facial hair, I'm always a part of the he looks just like this guy game. So it's, that joke will always exist. And rest assured, the hair will never grow back. I'm not one of those that can grow it if I want to. It's gone. So, Charles Barkley-ish, if you will.
So, you got to get Jasher to tell you the story about walking around campus when he first got to Tuskegee. That's why I apologized to him. I think, Jasher, what was it, 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the job, you called me and said,
I called you for a lot, Travis. I'm not sure where you're going with this.
This was about, why did I have to follow you or something to that extent?
Oh, well, you know what? That it just really says a lot
apologize before you tell the story, just so you know.
No, I mean, it says a lot about the work that Travis does. And
who I followed, so.
You guys know what kind of production he's got there. Wherever he's been, he's done quality work. And so whenever I put out something, I got infamous replies. Well, Travis didn't do it this way. Travis did it this way. So, new sheriff in town, so to speak. But listen, if you're talking about following behind somebody, it was probably the easiest transition I've had. Travis left almost like a portfolio in a long handwritten notes of items, whether it was just logins, stat information, archives, all kind of stuff. It was about a 5 to 10 page book of handwritten notes that's probably still in that office, and it's going to benefit somebody, whoever's next that they decide to hire.
Duane, it's like I tell you, you always got to leave something better than the way you found it.
Absolutely.
That's correct.
So that's why when Jasher, which happened to be, I'll tell you this story. And Jasher, I hope you don't mind me telling the story about the phone call you made to me when I was at Alabama State. Duane, you know the office. You know how many desks were in that office and how many phones were in that one room.
Yeah.
There's one phone we didn't answer, and that was on the far end of the office where the door was. The phone rang 7-8 times. It didn't have voicemail. I picked it up, and it was Jasher asking me, hey, can I speak to Travis? I was like, yeah, this is him kind of thing, because it wasn't my line.
Right.
You never want to answer the phone and find out who it is. That's why the golden rule on my cell is if I don't have your number in my phone, I'm not answering. You're going to have to leave me a message and I'll call you back.
Yes.
So Jasher, I picked it up and he told me who he was and told me a story, told me he wanted to come back. Well, Jasher, the relationship with Jasher went back when he was at the TV station. We crossed paths when he was at the TV station. So he was asking about the job. And I finally just said, at the end of it, I just said, hey, do you want it?
Right.
I basically was trying to tell you to take the job. I mean, at that point, it was up in the air for whoever wanted it, including me if I wanted to go back. So that's how that relationship goes back. That's why a lot of people don't understand how big these relationships are that you've got to keep them. We have phone conversations all the time. I still pick up the phone and call Jasher 2-3 times a day if I need something. Just to bounce a question off. Same thing with you, Duane. Same thing with you, AA.
I was just talking about leaving things better. I don't know that I necessarily left them better, but when I worked there, it was me and it was LaTanya. But LaTanya wasn't, she wasn't a writer. She was an operations person. But when the work needed to be done, I pretty much had to put the work in. But my last real official act, and I don't know if anybody even cares to hear this, but they asked me to put together a budget that would, cover the entire sports information department. And at this point, sports information was, it was a real afterthought when I was there. I'll write this budget. I write this budget to have clothes so that we could outfit everybody, so that we could hire more people, so that everyone got phones. I wrote that entire budget. It tripled the amount that was in there. For you all who worked there and got that nice salary, I was the first one to get that salary for me. But before that, it was not a $30,000 a year job. You're welcome. So I did all of that, and I turned it in, and then like the next week, there's like, we thank you for your services, the course to the left.
Wow.
Not to, I think it put me in a position to get to somewhere else, to get to where I am now. And, there's no ill will or anything like that. Like I said, out of all of us, I'm the alum.
Yeah.
So, I have sent family members to Alabama State. I still have great relationships there. But when I was working, I knew the importance of having people who could do certain things and needing to resource it. And so we put that together, and now I'm sure, Travis, you are certainly enjoying some of those fruits. Not that I feel like I'm giving it to you, but I'm sure it's better than running 18 sports by yourself, which is what I was doing when I was there.
Yeah,
we've been through those growing pains. We've had those issues where, you get people that come in and think they see the brighter side or the sunnier side of the road and leave. But at the end of the day, Alabama State is Alabama State. It's always been good to all of us at some point in our career. We'll make sure we get we'll make sure as a collective group, we'll get back together and talk about those 20 plus years of sports and memories we have. But again, A.A. Moore, Jasher Cox, Duane Lewis here today, the untimely passing of somebody that we all knew, that we all dealt with, that, you can't say a face of Alabama State, but the voice of Alabama State. Jay Holcey passed away mid-July. By the time we air this show, his memorial service will have already taken place. But, and I'll start. I'll say this. Somebody asked me my thoughts of Jay, and I said, when you spend, a guy for 20 years, and then you spend 6 hours every Saturday with this person in the press box, you get to know him even better, even more than you thought you knew him. And even if he's not in the press box, it's 6 hours with him on the headset talking to you from wherever you are back from Montgomery, whether it be that. And then, we spend 2 hours every Monday, the coaches show. So we're getting there and we're talking through things, and we're getting to know each other, asking about family, asking, what you got plans for the holidays, where are we staying, what you're going to do when we get there, kind of things. So for me, that's what it was, more of a personal relationship with Jay than it was a formal relationship, working relationship, only because of the stories we got to tell and the time we got to spend together. Come on, guys. Y'all know if you spend 6-7 hours a day on a Saturday in a press box with somebody in the same room, if you don't get to know them, there's something wrong. But I will say this, Jay Holcey will be remembered for his big personality and even bigger laugh.
Yes.
If you never heard Jay Holcey laugh and you're listening to this podcast, there's got to be a recording somewhere. We'll make sure we get it. We'll make sure we play it for you at some point. And that's my goal, is to have a dedication where we, I know Melanie Hogan at VAS was working on a soundbite program for Jay, and I asked her if I could get them, and she said she would allow me to have them. So that's my goal, is to at some point put that up so people can hear the memories of Jay. But, for me, it goes beyond, a working relationship. And I'll be honest, out of the three of you there on this call, the first call I made was to AA. Just because, I knew that he was there before any of us, and he knew Jay as well as I did, if not better. And I'll be real honest, the calls I made to all of you were probably the hardest calls I've made in a very, very long time. I don't ever want to make those calls again. I hope I never have to make those calls again. But, now is the time that I like to dedicate this part of of this podcast, to Jay Holcey and his memory and what he meant to each of you. So the floor is whoever wants it at this point.
Yeah, me and Jay, 20 plus years. And when you called me, it broke my day. It broke my spirits. I didn't work as much with Jay, although we had great times away from work. Jay was so cool that I'd have friends come from out of town and we'd hang. He was still friends with some of my friends, and they hadn't even been back. But he kept in communication with them. I get the one thing that I listened to the program that Miss Hogan did on DAS the other day, and even in reading the posts, the remembrances that people left on his Facebook page, they were all the same, all of them. That's how you know you got somebody who was genuine, someone who was real, someone you could count on. They all talked about his big heart, talked about his big laugh. Every one of them. If you go back and look at them, they're all the same. And that's the part that I missed. And the last time that we really got a chance to laugh and joke, he was actually, he had hit the road. It was down in Albany, Georgia, 2018 SIAC baseball championship. I don't think you were over there. Yeah, you might have been over there. I'm talking about Jasher. I couldn't remember Tuskegee baseball teams that he could, but you might have been there. But anyway, but Jay was there, and he was trying to get some names from me, and we were just laughing, like, who would name their kid this? That kind of stuff. And so we would have good laughs whenever he turned the microphone off. But that's who he was. I mean, you don't meet real cats like that all the time. And the way he would step, he could have been good at anything, but he really was good at not only just being on the radio, but management. He loved working on the radio, all the way back to his days when he was doing the show with Barry and John and on 740. And you'd hear Jay, but you didn't know who Jay was per se. It wasn't his show, but you always knew he was there. And that's what made that show cool to me. I didn't know Barry and John near as much, but I knew Jay. And so I could listen and wait to hear and let them, when Jay got a chance to speak a little bit or something like that. So I knew somebody on that show. And when I tell you that I'm going to miss him being around, knowing what he, not just to me, but who he was and how he was to all the other people who were hurt by this, man, I tell you, it's hard, but man, there's love, and he left a lot of love, and I hope people never forget that.
No, I agree, and I'll chime in before Duane. Hey, you stole my thunder. I moved to Montgomery in 2005, and just like anybody else that's a sports fan, you listen to Sports Radio 740 with John and Barry. It's a really good show in the morning. Sandpaper and Silk is the nickname there, and immediately, anytime something was said between two hosts, you could hear Jay Holcey, who was producing the show back then. You could hear that infectious laugh, and I had no idea who he was. I had never met him at that time. Again, this is 2005, but I'm like, man, who is this guy laughing in the background? And you find yourself laughing because of his laugh, and that's all you need to know about Jay Holcey. But the other thing is his heart. Just to educate some people who may be watching this, Jay Holcey, before he was the music director there at WVAS 90.7 and hosting the show called Swingtown, Billy Boynton was an employee there, as you know, AA, and he used to host a show that he called Swingtown. When Billy Boynton passed away, his untimely passing, to show you what Jay Holcey was made of, he renamed the show and started hosting it himself and called it Billy Boynton's Swingtown, which is what we have today prior to Jay's unfortunate passing. So that just goes to show you what kind of individual he was. Really knowledgeable about jazz. I'm a music guy myself. I originally went to school as a music education major before I realized I wasn't any good at it, but it was my passion. And very, very knowledgeable about all genres of music. You know, I would find myself walking up to Jay trying to figure out what's next, who's coming out, who's the rising artist and the star. So from the latest hip hop star, rising artist, he knew that all the way back to, you know, your Dizzy Gillespie's and Duke Ellington. He knew all of that stuff, and an amazing mind, very sharp individual. But you know, I'm a firm believer. I'm a believer. I don't think God makes any mistakes, and obviously he was needed elsewhere, and his work down here was done.
Jay was just kind of the glue, man. He just made everything go. My time there, and you know, when Bama State baseball started coming into prominence, we want to talk about, you know, we had guys from everywhere, and he took pride in getting every name right. But that being said, no one could say Walter Von Estrada and roll a tongue like Jay Holcey. I can't do it to this day. My life depended on it. And Waldy was his guy. Yeah. For whatever reason, Waldy was his guy. But he was the glue behind, to me, Bama State baseball as far as the game elements, the pride he took in the PA, bringing the sound effects to it, that he helped elevate that program maybe more than people really realize, just by his passion. Everything he did with passion. We did a couple of games together. My latter couple of years there, he always had a passion about what he did, the pride he took in it. It was always a joy just to be around him, to be in his presence. You also knew when it was halftime, there was a break. You knew where he and Jonathan Spells were going to be. They were going to find that certain trap door to get their recovery, if you will. We just call it recovery. Do that. But you knew where to find him. But the passion, man, and the laughter, the joy. I was fortunate to run into him in November. We both were in Houston, of all places. We were getting ready to fly back here. We had played Prairie View in football. Bama State had beaten Texas Southern. We're flying back, and I hear this voice turn around, and it's Jay. Not expecting to see the Hornets there. We got a chance to talk, take a picture. And unfortunately, you know, it's been a tough year. I talked about that kind of my memory of Jay. You know, he told me what happened with Tavares, you know, back in April. So just that unique connection there with him, just kind of being that glue, and just his passion I'll miss, the laughter everyone has talked about, and just the pride he took in doing his job, whether on the air, behind the scenes, longtime producer for the VAS broadcast, with Spells and Tony Fleming and Rob Taylor and those guys, and certainly names going on. He's going to be missed without question, and hopefully something that all of us do individually as well as collectively will hopefully make him proud as he looks down on.
Just a lighthearted story on our end. If you go back and listen, probably I think it was over the last year, maybe 2 years, of any of the football broadcasts, and you would hear a loud bang.
Yes.
Yes. So let me explain to you. That loud bang went from Jay banging on the table to us having a book or a notebook inside the room so we could wake Jay up at some point in the third quarter after halftime because he wouldn't go get those recovery breaks. I had to make sure Jay stayed awake because Jay was producing. So when we would drop it, I had to make sure after about 2 times Jay started swinging with his right hand and hit me in the hip. So I had to make sure that I got on the other side when the book dropped, so I didn't get hit. And we had just talked, guys. This is how ironic this is. We had just talked, and it was the Monday after the 4th, and we were talking about it. We were laughing about it. We were laughing about, you know, am I going to have to keep you awake at some point during the broadcast this year, and what are we going to do different? So we went through all these things of what he was thinking, what I was thinking, and that's really the first time I've ever wrote any of the thoughts down. You know, I usually just try to remember them and go. So, I mean, I wrote them down. So guess what? I wrote them down so the next time we get in there, we're going to try to make some of those changes that he liked and that he wanted to see. Because at the end of the day, you know, he was our producer. He knew right from wrong. He knew when to adjust us and when not to adjust us. Yeah. So for me, you know, that's when it gets on that professional level. He made me sound good because I can tell you, I sound terrible and I hate listening to myself. So at the end of the day, you know, people always say, hey, you know, I really like listening to that. I was like, I don't remember what you're talking about because I don't go back and listen. I can't. That's why I give this to Jace and let Jace go back and edit all this stuff. I just don't want to hear myself talk anymore. So, those are some lighthearted moments. And, he's going to be missed. He's going to be missed by not just Alabama State people. He did PA at Montgomery Academy.
Mm-hmm.
He did PA at Huntington. He did stats at Huntington. He filled in at the scores table. I mean, Jay's reach is very, very far.
Yeah.
And, and it goes beyond Alabama State. So, he'll stay in our hearts for a while and in our memories. But at the same time, Duane, like you said, as a collective group, we got to make sure we, not just Tavares and Coach Markham, we need to make sure we keep Jay's memory going as long as we can. One thing I wanted to point out for those that are actually watching, they're going to watch the podcast, I want Jasher to talk about his shirt for a little while. I know he wore it for this special occasion.
Listen, Alabama State, the only Division I school in the state's capital of Montgomery. Why would I hop on a podcast and not wear this shirt? Nah, Rosa Parks. That's what we are today. Shout out to Rosa Parks. Yes. Shout out to Montgomery.
Yes.
Speaking of that, let's end it this way. And Jasher, I know I haven't had this talk with AA and Duane, but Jasher, I've had this talk with you. Being where Alabama State is, being where we have all been, and I'll say it, being where I've lived all but 6 years of my life, and heck, I just turned 46. So what's that, 40? Yeah, I called myself out. Look, hey, I'm 46 and I'm 42 down by the time this podcast comes out. So, I'm trying to get past my age and getting that weight down. And next time y'all see me, I'm going to be, I'm going to be back down to my playing weight. So, it's one of those things. But when we talk about being in the city of Montgomery, and I put it this way, and I think Jasher, if I'm not mistaken, did I put it this way on that paper I sent you just to kind of read where I started, which is 2 pages then? It's now 68 pages today. I put on there how difficult it is to grow up when you've got a city that is labeled as the cradle of the Confederacy, but as the home of the Civil Rights Movement.
Yeah.
And the world we live in today, and Duane and AA, I'll send it to you and let you write it, because AA, I know you'll rip it apart and pull your red pen out on me and tell me I need to change it. The title is What If? What if it had been different? What if we didn't have that first march of what we're called as the cradle of the Confederacy? What if the Civil Rights Movement didn't happen here in Montgomery? But again, what if the world was a better place and everybody got along, and instead of being, hiding in the shadows and not speaking up, people like me that look like me, be a light and get rid of the hate and see what you can do to help. I mean, talk about just the way the world is today. And Jasher, I'll start with you, because those thoughts. Me and you have talked several times about this.
Yeah. First of all, obviously this is an election year, and I don't want to get on a political party side, regardless of your political affiliation. I just want you to be a decent human being. Let's just start there. But I think about the civil rights moment, and I've been to Selma several times, and then you make that drive, which is about roughly 50 minutes to Montgomery. And then I try to visualize individuals who marched from Selma to the state capitol, so people like me and you could vote, just to simply vote and have their voices heard. That's important to me. That's valuable to me. I think about while we've made tremendous strides, and I think we can all agree we've got quite a ways to go, but Montgomery has made some incredible strides in terms of its racial divide. Once upon a time, the Baptist church that sits there, Dexter Avenue's church, Martin Luther King could literally stand on the front balcony of his church, look to his right, and see Governor Wallace, who was preaching segregation. People don't realize how close in proximity that is until you visit that city. So a lot has changed, and I think we have a long way to go. But there's a reason we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We've got to listen twice as much as we talk and make sure we understand, get wisdom and get understanding. I find myself saying that repeatedly. And the other thing is when we have these difficult conversations, stay on the focal point. let's stay focused on the topic at hand. If we're going to talk racial injustice, let's talk racial injustice. I don't want to have a conversation with you and you bring up what's happening in Chicago. That's irrelevant. Black on black crime is still crime. White on white crime is still crime, regardless of where you're from and your background. Crime is crime. And when we mention the words and the phrases white privilege, that doesn't necessarily mean you're better than me or you didn't have to work or you didn't come from a poor background. That just means your skin color isn't making it more difficult for you. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yes, unique time right now. There's so much happening, a lot of time for reflection, just being quarantined for the most part, and all the rise of people speaking up from all races, all countries has been a very powerful movement that maybe this is our 1960s moment in our lifetimes and in society. And it's, I think, Jasher, you said it great. You know, we all have to listen. There's perceptions of what the life experience has been. There's been something where no one's given it a thought to the challenges that we have and challenges that we face. It's never been about an advantage. Just level the playing field. Just level the playing field and make it equitable, and we'll take it from there. And that's all it's been about, equality. And for every reason, you know, we lost two giants early this month, C.T. Vivian and John Lewis, who marched in '65, who were jailed together in Jackson, Mississippi together as part of the Freedom Riders, fighting the same fight that unfortunately in this country we're still fighting today. But I do feel like there'll be more positivity coming out of this because we've had a number of people to speak up, and hopefully, you know, we can carry the torch a little bit further for the generations that are coming behind us, that hopefully we can leave it better than what we inherited when we got here.
And, you know, I grew up north. I'm not from Alabama, although I've been here quite some time. And I promise you, one thing that I know is that it's not impossible. I grew up in a very diverse city, neighborhood, where even to this point, you know, I've got great friends across many different, races, ethnicities, political persuasions, any of that. But we are all fine, you know, because we grew up knowing that it was possible to be good with and to each other. And it made it very easy when I came down. And Travis doesn't look like me, although I'm sure in the morning when he gets in the mirror, he tries. But me and Travis were good right off the top. And not only do we just get along, but we can be different and still be able to have those conversations where maybe we don't agree, but we can get to a place where we can, even if it's agreeing to disagree, we can get there. And it has allowed me to be able to get some places that are different. I haven't worked all in HBCUs. I think that's the same, certainly right now for Jasher. And right now, Travis is he works at HBCU, so he's around, you know, more people that look like me and Duane and Jasher, but he can be in and fill in because it is possible to be able to have an open mind and to be able to look at these issues and to express them all. It doesn't have to be so far radical one way or the other. We can get to the middle, and it's just going to be on us. However we are going to be able to do it, get us all to the middle, to be able to, even if we agree to disagree, to be able to do that in a way that does not cause for senseless deaths or people being put down or mistreated simply because of the color of their skin, how they look, what they think, or any of those kinds of things.
Yeah, for the words that really stuck out from the three of you were open mind, and you know, you got to be open minded. We're all going to be different. No, you know, I don't look the same as you three or anybody else that we're talking about, but if you've got an open mind and you try to be that light, you know, I'll be honest. And I think Jasher, I told you this. You know, I grew up in Montgomery, But when you grow up in a city that has so much of this that has happened in the past, you really don't think about it. But when you have those luxuries that you can go to the Rosa Parks Museum and educate yourself, when you can go to the Dexter Avenue Church and educate yourself, when you can go to the EJI, which is right here in Montgomery, and educate yourself, or drive 90 minutes to Birmingham to the Civil Rights Museum and educate yourself, then it's like I was talking to our team chaplain, Courtney Meadows. The more you educate yourself on these things, the better off this whole world will be. And it necessarily doesn't have to go and go to those places. Have an uncomfortable conversation. Let me tell you how many rooms I've been in the last 6 years that I felt uncomfortable. I'll give you one right now. Dr. West came and spoke at Tuskegee. And you know how quick I wanted to walk out. But at the end of the day, if I walked out, he would have seen me walk out. And he would have called me out because, hey, look at that white guy walking out of the gym. And y'all know I'm right about Dr. West on that one. Because Coach Slater even asked me, Jasher, Coach Slater. Coach Slater even asked me, he goes, did you feel uncomfortable? I was like, I did. But at the end of the day, I'm better off for it because I heard what he had to say.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of what it is, and it's not just that. It's go get a book, read a book. I'll give one right now. It's called White Fragility. It's sitting right here to my left. I've read it. I got another one sitting right here that I just was on a web stream the other day, How to Be an Anti-Racist. This a #1 seller, the New York Times. But here's one for you. Josh, remember all that stuff I sent you? Now you know where I got it from.
Got it.
So, it's called, this is for all the people who are uneducated about what's going on. And, and sometimes it's not a lot on both sides of the street, but there is some on both sides of the street. And I look at it like this: is why do there have to be two sides of the street? There's one road. We can all walk down it together. We can all learn from each other at the end of the day. And for me, having the last 6 years of my life working at an HBCU has really enlightened me and changed my thought process of really wanting to get educated on, not to say I never was, but now when if I want to speak on it, I want to be able to speak and sound like I know exactly what I'm talking about and not, he just read a book. From day one, AA, we've been able to connect. Duane, same thing. Jasher, same thing. It's not in my DNA to not be able to connect with somebody, no matter who they are or what they do for a living or what they look like. It's just not me.
And part of the beauty of all this, the Alabama State University has been at the center of all of this.
That's true.
Exactly. It really has. You go and you see the Rosa Parks, the little statue sitting right across from Lockhart. You see the historical marker about the bus boycott, the meetings that took place on Alabama State's campus right there in front of Council Hall.
Yeah.
You got Abernathy Hall. For those that don't know that are listening to this broadcast, look up Ralph Abernathy. If you don't know who he is, I don't want to say shame on you because some of you may not be old enough to know, but, you got to look him up. And if you want to know who he is, 9 times out of 10, when you look at a picture of Martin Luther King, he's usually the second person to his right.
Well, Duane, you nailed it. When you talk about an institution that was found, with some 9 freed slaves, and now you look at the campus, fast forwarding to today, Alabama State University is the headquarters for multiple ethnicities in that city of Montgomery, Alabama. Look at the roster of that softball team right now at a historically black college and university. Look at the roster in that volleyball team right now on its baseball team. Just because it's an historically black institution doesn't mean it doesn't welcome people that aren't black. And that is one of the best ways to find yourselves being misinformed. That institution welcomes everyone.
Yes, with open arms. I can hear Primewell hand in my ear when he talked about Alabama State being civil rights youth. Civil rights, that's part of human rights for everyone.
And of course, where Cromwell preaches. So
Dexter Avenue King Memorial Baptist Church.
Exactly. But guys, I appreciate your time. Let's don't let this be a one-time thing. We do need to come back and, hey, how long is it going to take for us to be able to have a reunion where you come back and shame Jasher and Duane?
Oh yeah, my hair will be back in about 3 to 4 days, so we can come back and do this.
Hey, let me say this before I get off, man. I appreciate everyone on this Zoom chat here. I've been able to come to each of you guys totally clueless in a variety of areas, trying to figure out how do I do X, Y, Z. And every time I've called you, no matter the time of the night, sometimes you guys just completely have taken it out of my hands and said, man, I'll just do it for you. I know you don't know how to do it. I got it. I appreciate you guys, man. I love you guys. And, you know, if anybody else is watching this, man, value the people that you have in your circle. You know, no one knows the day nor the hour, man. So make sure you constantly – you're in constant contact with those that are important to you, man. I appreciate everything you guys have done for me personally.
Yeah. No worries. I'm still going to send that invoice.
You got a couple of them that overdue with me, man.
Some things never change with AA more.
Absolutely.
Never, ever change.
City Slick in Chicago, man, you know.
Hey, AA, Jasher, Duane, I really do appreciate y'all jumping on. I appreciate you taking as much time as we took today. You know, I don't say it enough. You know, I love each of you guys for what you do in my life and what you've done in my professional career. I mean, you know, y'all could have easily turned your back and said, "Man, we're not helping you. We don't want to help you at all." But you know, you've all been there. You're still there. You know, but I have to say this, and Duane and AA, forgive me. You know, I do, and I appreciate Jasher everything you've done in my professional career. Y'all don't know how much that he's helped me grow outside of communications field. And we have some heart-to-heart talks and life talks about what needs to happen. So, you know, Jasher, for that, I don't say it enough. I appreciate it, Duane. Appreciate you for what you do as far as being a mentor, as far as being able to pick up the phone and call you and bad ideas. And AA, man, we go back too far. Man, if I sat here and told you I appreciate everything you've done for me, I mean, come on, we'd be here all night. So again, I appreciate each and every one of you. I love I love each and every one of you. I love what you've done with your career and your life and what you've done for each other.
Absolutely. Love you guys as well, man. Let's keep pushing forward and keep making positive things happen for our student athletes and in our communities.
Very well.
I'm with all that.
So for AA Moore, Jasher Cox, Duane Lewis, this is Travis Strom saying thank you for watching and listening to Hornet Nation Unfiltered. Next week when we come back, we'll have Ray Hernandez from the Alabama State Baseball Pass. That is a former Atlanta Brave, now kicking it in the Frontier League.
Yes.
Try to get back to that major league level. Ray Hernandez next week after this episode. Again, we thank you for listening and watching. And there's the sign I was waiting on the entire time. But again, for all those watching and listening, Jasher still does not have an Arby's inside the city limits where he lives. Again, thanks for watching and listening. We'll talk to you again next week. You've been listening to Hornet Nation Unfiltered. We'll be back next week with another special guest from Alabama State's past. Until next time.